Hello, and welcome to the More You Know podcast. Today, I am super excited because we have the privilege to hear from the best of the best in Richland 2 School District. Now, parents, I know you think I'm talking about myself, but I'm not. I'm talking about our wonderful students that you're going to hear from. Now, why would I have students here today? Because we are going to talk about understanding the new cell phone policy, and we want to hear from our students. So the theme of this podcast is Voices from Students and Leadership in reference to the new Free to Focus policy. Now, I would normally introduce our guests, but because these are awesome students, I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you. So we will start right here.
Hi, my name is Yaya and I attend Ridgeview High School.
My name is Molly Sherman and I attend Blythewood High School.
Hi, my name is Ethan Kropp and I attend Blythewood High School.
Hi, my name is Kaylin Hartwell and I attend Spring Valley High School.
Hello, my name is Jordan Benjamin and I attend Spring Valley High School.
Hi, I'm Layla Rush and I attend Westwood High School.
Hello, I am Davis Heath and I attend Westwood High School.
Hi, I'm Tatiana James and I attend Ridgeview High School.
Hi, I'm Dulce Calix and I attend Richland Northeast High School.
Hi, I'm Skylar Hillier and I attend Richland Northeast High School.
Thank you, students, for that introduction. Parents, as you are aware, the legislators last session put a proviso in that was attached to the budget. The proviso is for what we call free to focus. What it states is that districts must have a policy that outlines that phones or any devices that connect to Wi-Fi cannot be used by students from the morning bell to begin school to the last bell that ends school. In addition, the proviso gives us some flexibility around phone uses before school, after school, during sporting events and field trips. The proviso also allows districts to actually ban phones from coming onto campus. Now, Richland 2 School Board of Trustees approved our new policy at our board meeting recently. So if you haven't had a chance to review the policy, parents, I strongly encourage you to do that because we need your support in doing this. But today, we're going to talk with our students because in Richland 2, we value student voice and we want to hear their input on this new policy that's in place. So we're going to start off with a few questions, students, and I think I already know the answer to the first question, so we're going to just do a poll because I want to give you time to actually express yourself. Would it be fair to say that you're not happy with this policy as it is written in support of the proviso? So if you are not in support of the free to focus, no phones from bell to bell, raise your hand. I kind of figured you would be unanimous with that. I didn't think I needed to ask who was in support of it. So why do you think this policy was implemented? Why do you think the legislators put it together or put it in state law?
I just feel like they've probably heard a lot of complaints from teachers not being able to control their students well and not getting their attention so they can have the respect and do what they need to teach their subject.
Okay. And so in front of you, you have some statistics, right? In your hand. When you take a look at those statistics, what resonates with you? Anything jump out to you?
I do want to say that 97% of students use phones during school. That's a huge number. It should be something that we're expecting, but when you look at it on paper and statistics-wise, it's a huge number.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the 83% of teachers supporting an all-day phone-free policy was interesting because I know that I use my phone as a tool in a lot of my classes.
Okay.
I can say what stands out to me is that 45 Well, students receive 4,500 notifications every day, but some of them can also come from like emails and Google Classroom notifications and things related to school.
Mm-hmm. That one stood out to me also. I thought that's a lot of notifications, 4,500. I mean, even if you cut it in half, 2,500 notifications would be significant. One more.
I agree that some of these numbers are very large. So I guess one of the questions that comes to my mind is the sample size. What types of students are being polled? Is it elementary, middle school, high school students? Just more information and details to go along with these numbers.
Well, you know what, Ethan? I'm so glad you asked that question, because that gives us an opportunity to have a teaching point, right? We should always look at statistics, but look at where did those statistics come from. So that means we have to go in and do some research around that. And so just for your benefit, as most of you are seniors, some of you are juniors, but the majority of you are seniors, you're going to be leaving us and entering into the world. You'll see lots of numbers that are going to come up, but always look behind the number for the information to determine, is that a valid number? And do the people that are giving you that information, are they supporting their own agenda, or are they presenting information in a neutral fashion? Just a teaching point, okay? So based upon those statistics that you saw, that's part of the motivation behind this policy. In particular, your teachers want to be able to teach their lessons and not have to spend time correcting students about phones. And so that number for teachers is probably a pretty good representation of teachers across our state as far as having this distraction as using cell phones in the classroom. Now, here's where I want you guys to excel. And I'm going to do a little talking, and you're going to do all the talking. Okay? Don't make me go in teacher mode and call on you, because I will do that. You know, you've been in meetings with me. Most of you have been in meetings, and you know when it gets quiet and I haven't heard from a particular school, what do? Call on you. Look at you and call on you. So here's my first question. I know you don't support or don't agree with the policy, but what were your initial reactions when you heard that this was going to start in January and that you would not be allowed to use any device that connects to Wi-Fi from the first bell to the last bell?
I can start. I was kind of shocked because most of us here are student leaders and we're a part of the student governments at our school, and a big part of what we do is using social media and taking pictures to just show what we do at our school and showcase our students, our faculty, our staff, and all the excellent things that we do at our school. So I was kind of shocked to see that they were going to take away that from us, but I also could kind of understand why they're doing it. But for student leaders, it kind of hinders us from what we need to do, because our main focus is to make school really enjoyable, and to be able to do that, we need to promote what we're doing.
I can second that. I know one of our biggest concerns was student government, but I remember when we first read over it in our first meeting, I think the first thing I thought of was more of safety. And I know that, like, for example, whenever I text my parents about, like, hey, like, I'm going here today, like, for example, if I have like a field trip, if I'm going to Camp Gravett in Aiken, like, I got to my place safely. I know one of the restrictions in the restrictions that was left up to the district was if you could bring your phones on field trips. So that's one of the first things that caught my eye. And then also, I think another thing was just, like, I know we live in a very dangerous world, and I know that now more than ever, there are more threats at our schools than ever before. So I think the biggest thing for me was, like, safety, and not even just for me, but I know for my friends, like, can they reach their parents if there's an emergency, and what are, like, the protocols that are in place for that?
I as well was very surprised when I heard it, because of the same thing, you know, most of the time we were using our cell phones to contact either our parents or in the school. And I was very confused by the fact that it was starting on January, which is the half of the year, of the school year, and not at the beginning of the school year. But I was also concerned about the way that it was going to work and how the students would feel with that new policy, or how we would implement it.
Let me answer both of those points before the next person. So what we chose to do in Richland 2 is not ban cell phones before school, after school, at sporting events, or on field trips. So on field trips, you would still be able to use your phone. And then why second semester? The proviso was approved in late June when the legislative session ended. And the way it works through the system is once the proviso was approved, then it goes to the State Department of Education. They then work with the State Department of Education board, who has to develop the policy, one reading, the first reading of the policy, then the second reading of the policy. Then it comes to school districts. So we did not receive the policy until August, late August, early September, which then we have to then review the policy, staff it through all of our different advisory groups, which includes our parent advisory group, our student advisory group, our classified staff advisory group, our teacher forum. We take it to all of the groups, get their input, then we bring it to the board for a first reading of the policy, and then the board has to do a second reading and approve the policy. So because it has to go through all of those different steps, the State Department of Education said we cannot put this policy in effect the middle of August, because some schools had already started, school districts. We have to wait till January to give everybody time to work through the process. So that's why it took so long. All right, don't make me look.
I know that for me, as a senior, I only have, I think, 2 to 3 classes this semester. Next semester, it'll only be 2 classes. So I believe that under the proviso and under the policy now, even though I could be at school as a student leader, I'm technically not still allowed to be on my phone. So that just kind of jumped out at me that even though my learning is technically done for the day, I'm done with instructional time, I'm still not allowed to be on my personal devices or have my phone, even if I'm doing student government work. That was something that came out to me.
And Ethan, you've led me into my next question, so I'm going to let the ones that haven't spoke combine those two. You can answer either one. And that's around how will it impact your daily school experience, because you just touched on that. And I know some of you have dual enrollment classes or free periods in between classes. And so how do you feel this policy is going to affect you?
I want to speak on that. So as a dual enrollment student, I'm a part of the so lovely Avid Early College program here in Richland too. So I do have spaces in between my schedule, but I'm also a college student. So that's way different than just high school. We have the opportunity to use different resources. A lot of professors are okay with us being on our cellular devices, but we don't have that option anymore. So with that being said, it makes it a little bit more difficult to interact with others, but at the same time, it makes it very easy because we're right there and we learn the usage of how to actually socially interact again, build that back up. Although the older generation does want to tell us, oh, you have social media, you have this platform, use it, how about enhance it for us? Now we have to go back to the basic blocks and we have to learn how to socially interact. So spending time in the library with friends, reading books, doing those simple things. I feel like that's gonna also improve our generation of how we learn how to socially interact. So that helps with anxiety, depression, maybe things like that that are also listed on this sheet. But I also wanna say on the other hand, it may also hinder us because something that we have the right to ever since we were born, or something that we have learned that this is our obligation, that has just been taken from us.
Okay, so yeah, I think I have a broader perspective regarding the phone policy than what has previously been mentioned. As a student, I'm obviously not fond of it. However, I do understand that there's nothing we, you, or even any other school district in South Carolina can do, as this is a policy attached to school funding. I do think, though, we should put our attention towards the consequences that may arise to this policy addition. You mentioned teachers. it's not expected for everyone just to roll over and abide, and there will be pushback, and with pushback comes disciplinary action. Richland 2 is a majority Black or African American school district, so the discipline will be Black students. With that insight of research, basically detailing racial disparities in school discipline is linked to academic gaps, increases the severity of this conversation, because it's not just about I don't like it anymore. At the state level, the gap in which African American students, or African Americans in general, encompass those who have higher education will widen, and at the school level, you can expect to see drops in graduation rates and test scores. Then that in totality with the effect that expulsion and expulsion has on a student's education is the reasoning for this argument, because once again, our Black children are the retribution for policy and politics, if that makes sense.
It does. See parents, why I said these were the brilliant students in Richland School District 2? Dropping those nuggets, those pearls of wisdom. We haven't heard from a few of you. Who haven't we heard from? I'm looking.
Well, that was very well said. I just want to say that. While I do agree with what everybody's been saying, I do also see, like, as a student council leader, I have one class a day. So the rest of my time I spent with my student council advisor, and we make things happen for the school. As of right now, we're planning our winter event. So we, as seniors of the school that we don't have classes, we use that time effectively to go around the school and do our things. So without our phones, it creates a harder line of communication to get these things planned, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
I think that going back to our first question a little bit on like the initial reaction, I think like one of my initial reactions and what I've heard a lot of concerns about were how our teachers and administrators were going to be able to like handle this and be able to enforce the rules when they already have too much on their plate most of the time, and it's like a 2,000 plus kid school where there's people walking around at all times. It's just kind of hard that I think for them to grasp on what they're supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to be able to handle that when they already have too much on their plate.
That's a very good point.
Speaking of, I had a concern about how is this going to affect the teachers. Are they also going to be, not use their phones, or will they be able, because I know teachers now, they need to use their phone to connect to the school program and all of that, but I've heard from some students who are asking, will they also be banned from cell phones, or how would that work?
So teachers will still be able to use their phones because they do have to connect to the system, and because of security threats, we have 2 authentications that teachers have to do. So they will still be able to use their phones, but we know that teachers will also, to the best of their ability, model what they expect from their students.
Okay, because I've talked to one of my favorite teachers, and she was like, about what Molly said, it was like, how am I supposed to be able to teach if I have to get onto these students about their phones nonstop? And I was just wondering, how would she do that without interrupting her personal class time?
The policy is designed to hopefully minimize that, just like teachers address behaviors in the classroom every day, whether it's cell phone or students off task or whatever the issue is. And so I'm confident that our teachers will be able to work with our students on this policy, understanding that there'll be some people who will not follow the policy, and therefore we have consequences that are in the policy for students that do not comply.
Can you say those consequences?
See, this is why I have you guys here. Notice, I normally come to my podcast without anything in my hand, but I brought a folder and a pen because I knew you guys were going to ask me some tough questions. And so, yes, I actually do have the consequences here. This is the policy, by the way, if you have not had a chance to read it. And it covers definitions in it. But consequences would be, for the first offense, the student would be redirected. The second offense, the phone would be confiscated and returned to the student at the end of the school day. So the phone would be turned over to administration. Administration, you would go see one of the administrators. Third offense is confiscate the device, return the device to the parent. The fourth offense moves up the discipline chain to refusal to obey defiance, and then the consequences become more severe. So going back to Layla's point, then we would be looking at possibly having students out of school for periods of time because they just continue to not comply with the rules. But that happens anyway with a group. You know, some students make choices that are not necessarily in their best interests or ones that we would want them to make. So I think we have one more person to hear from.
I think for me, it's just concerning, and I know it's concerning to a lot of athletes, but I'm an athletic trainer at my school. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just concerning on how like the communication would work with that. I know a lot of times our head athletic trainers communicate with us about passes being put in to leave class early, to go to like football games and things like that. So it's just a concern with that.
So would your trainer be able to communicate with you through your Chromebook, send you an email?
Yeah, they could, but I think it's just harder because not a lot of people check their emails.
Okay.
I check mine, but I know not everyone does.
All right. So let's transition to solutions, because we know what we have to do. But from your perspective, I'm not the one sitting in the classroom. I'm not a student government advisor. I'm not an athletic trainer, although I would like to probably be. What do you think about some possible solutions? Because Tatiana brought up the point that in the long run, this may be beneficial because you'll have to learn to talk to the person sitting next to you instead of texting that person, right? Or to have a conversation. But what are some solutions? We have to put this in place in January. So you're the best and the brightest of your schools. How can we make this work?
So I know sometimes the students use their phones because on their computers they can't access a website, right? Because they're blocked or something like that. So I guess them being able to access more websites, of course, that don't affect the students. That could help for the students so they don't have to go to use their cell phones to access a website.
Okay, that's a great solution. And you guys, for the student government ones that meet with me, you know what I tell you. You should be having monthly meetings with your principal at a minimum, correct? So that may be one of the solutions you bring to your principal so that we can collect those websites, and then the district, we can give you access to those. Because I will tell you, there's times when I'm trying to go to something on my computer, and guess what it does? It denies me access. I'm the superintendent. And now I don't even have full access. So then I'll have to go and do some things to, just like your teacher would, to get access to that site that I'm trying to go to. Of course, it's all educational sites. Let me just point that out to your parents. I'm not looking at anything I'm not supposed to. So, what are the possible solutions?
I also want to say, so not necessarily a solution because nothing is ever, there's no perfect solution to anything. But I do want to say, like you said, meeting with your higher up or with your principal at least once a month, which we do, and I'm quite sure everybody else sitting here does. It's very important because it's not necessarily as a district as a whole, but it's as each individual school if we do what we need to do to come together to make the district look good as a whole. So if we sit down with those people, our staff members, our principal, if we sit down with those people at our school, we look at the people that we have at our school. We know these people more than people from other schools or people who might be in the district office because we sit here, we interact, we talk with them every single day. If we look from there and we have conversations with these people, or if we see how our people interact with each other, what they struggle with, what they don't struggle with, then we can understand from root one, from our school, how we can fix that to make our school look better and also make the district look better on that behalf.
Okay. Jordan?
I would say one of the solutions, well, I feel like this isn't really a solution, for right now at the moment, but more long term, I think definitely pushing, I know as us, like as student leaders, pushing more for student advocacy, because for one, that the people who are making this are legislators who maybe not a lot of us vote for, but our parents are voting into office who are making this. But also I think having more students come to the board meetings, because I know in the policy that it also mentions that superintendents will be sent a survey around, I think it said like no later than April 30th, 2025, where they can discuss what the policy, how the policy works and how the policy doesn't work. And then through that, pushing the school board to advocate for maybe exceptions for people who do things like athletic training or student council, photography or media arts or stuff like that. And also just like pushing the school board to say our student grievances through that survey, and also for the support of the school board if, for example, say we were to push our legislators to make changes.
Layla?
Yeah, and like Jordan mentioned, I think we need to start at the top. We need to promote incentives for our students, because consequences, are not as much as a redirection as they used to be.
I think students can take advantage of this time because they have more free time, let's say during lunch. So they could take that time and go to clubs, organizations. As student governments, we can make more events during lunch events during lunch for students to really get to connect one with each other, to really get to connect with the teachers as well, and have communication one with another. And we'll have more time to do things for the school, clubs, organizations. I know in all of our schools we have many clubs, many organizations, and many other things to do. So we can take advantage of that, as students, and just get involved with the school.
Any other possible solution?
Just adding on, I just think that not all students are involved in clubs, so I just think as student governments, we can find engaging ways to keep our students on track and off of their phones. Because I know one thing that works at our school is lunchtime karaoke. When we have lunchtime karaoke, our auditorium gets really packed.
Can I come to lunchtime karaoke?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
I can carry a tune. I may not sing songs that you like or no,
Yes,
but I
ma'am.
can carry a tune.
But I just think that finding fun, engaging ways to interact with our student body and even our teachers will be a good way for now to uphold this policy.
Well, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here today. We're going to take a commercial break. But before we go, I just want to say to you, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to make lemonade out of the lemons. Now, student government has already heard me say this, but your voice is important. And if you come together and speak to people like our local legislators, when there's legislation days and you go to the State House and advocate for these things, your voice matters. So please never forget that. And with that, we are going to take our commercial break at this time. And we are back, and I want to say a very special thank you to all 5 of our high schools for allowing their students to come over today and be a part of this discussion. So students, make sure when you get back to your school, you thank your principal And you're not missing any classes, so parents, we're not concerned about seat time because they're not missing classes, but please let your administrators know how much you appreciate this opportunity to come here today. Now we're going to transition at this point because we know that research shows us that not just students, anyone that has a phone and spends a lot of time on that phone may have developed an addiction to the phone. It's very clear in research. So today I have with us Kelly Snipes. She is our lead psychologist for the district. And I'm going to ask Kelly a question and then open it up, Kelly, for the students to address you.
Okay.
So could you just kind of talk through, for parents as well as students, how we can help them detox from their phone?
Yes. You know, I'm so glad to hear from all the students because it is going to be difficult. This is going to be something that's a big change. Phones have been a big part of our lives. And so I think, you know, hearing your voices and how you really feel about it is such an important piece of this. But digital detox is really just kind of, I think of it as taking a pause from all of that digital exposure, whether it be from phones, tablets, taking a pause and just taking a moment to step away and be. And, you know, it is a hard thing to do because most of us feel a little anxious when we're separated from our phones. How many kind of resonate with that, feeling a little anxious about being separated? So that's a normal feeling, and I think it's okay for you all to just acknowledge that that is a feeling you're having. But in terms of kind of taking that pause and stepping away, it's really important to not try to do it all at once. Get yourself kind of ready. I kind of think of it like if I was going to run a marathon tomorrow, I wouldn't just walk out the door and just start running, right? I would kind of work myself up to it. So take small pauses when you can, even if it's just for a minute or two at a time at first, to put your phone aside and say, I'm going to just leave it and I'm going to go focus on something else. Over time, the more and more you practice that skill, the more and the more you'll be able to kind of stretch that time frame. There's some other things that you can do to sort of help with that. So somebody mentioned the notifications and how many of those we get every single day. If we can silence those, that can really help because every time, you know, your phone pings, that's going to take some automatic attention away from whatever you're doing to that phone. And so creating that space and distance literally from those notifications and from how close you are to your phone can actually help. So, you know, small steps, baby steps, you know, the pocket first, maybe the bag, maybe even taking some practice leaving it in another room, just kind of working ourselves up and working on that skill to sort of take that pause and delay. The other thing that can be helpful is really tuning into your own thoughts and feelings when you're getting that urge to pick up the phone. So as you're practicing this skill and you notice that urge of, I'm ready to pick up my phone, just to take a minute to put just a little bit of space between that urge and picking up the phone and really tuning into how am I feeling? Is there something triggering? Am I picking this up because I'm bored, because I'm anxious, because I want to connect with somebody, because I want to avoid something? And really notice that thought, notice that feeling, and don't judge it. Don't try to push it away. Just notice it and take a minute and see if it passes a little bit before you pick up that phone. Because just becoming more mindful in that moment can really help us tune into what our own triggers are to pick up the phone, what that phone might be providing for us. And if we can tune into that and notice those patterns over time, we can start to realize, you know, I think I'm picking this phone up when I'm bored, and maybe I need to find something else to do when I'm bored. Or I'm picking up this phone because I really want to feel connected to people around me. And I loved all of the suggestions that the students were talking about and the silver lining of this is going to be an opportunity to deepen connections in different ways. So think about how you can replace those things with other things that sort of serve the same purpose for you and help each other, you know, encourage each other. I think having this kind of open conversation about it being a difficult thing and having folks to talk to when it is difficult, and maybe even making little challenges with each other. You know, we're going to take a cell phone free lunch, and we're all going to put the phone in our bags, and we're going to just be and talk and try to resist that urge together to pick it up. Small steps, baby steps, you know, getting yourself sort of practicing how to just, again, take that pause, put some space in between the urge to pick it up and actually using your phone, and just kind of sitting with that feeling and seeing what happens.
Yes, I think that's some great strategies that you've given us, Kelly. You know, even us adults have to practice that too, because it's not just students that are addicted to their phones, it's adults also. So, students, what questions do you have for Ms. Snipes?
I want to go ahead and start off. So sorry. I'm a person, I know, along with a lot of other people, who has bad social anxiety. So a lot of people, they'll go on their phones, especially when they walk in the hallways, to avoid talking to people or to kind of calm themselves down, even if they're just swiping between the weather app and the calculator. They'll just kind of do that. So instead of just having a crowd of everybody going to somebody to help them at school, like a therapist or so, what is something that you recommend? Because sometimes that won't necessarily, us taking that phone away, won't necessarily allow us to interact with people. It'll just kind of shut us in more.
Wow, that's a great question, and I think the fact that you're noticing that and acknowledging that is a good first step. Because you're absolutely right, the phone can become a little bit of comfort in moments like that, because it gives us something to focus on other than, you know, maybe those thoughts or feelings that we're having internally. So, you know, finding other ways to divert your attention. So one of the strategies we sometimes use is tuning into our senses. So, you know, what are 5 things that you see? What are 3 things that you hear? Really tuning into your senses and what's going on around you serves the same purpose of creating space between that feeling and directing your attention to something else. It is difficult. I think this is where having trusted people that you can open up to and say, like, I might just need a minute. Maybe you have a book handy to look at, just finding those different things to kind of serve that same purpose, because I do hear you. There's definitely a point where we feel a little bit comforted when we have that phone in our hands. So what can we replace that with?
Okay, thank you.
I think mentally, just for me, I'm obviously going to go through my own, I guess you could say, struggles with the policy. But honestly, I've been somebody that's going to focus on other people and not necessarily focus on myself. So what are some strategies that you can kind of give me to, I guess, foster better relationships with other people, helping them through the shift in the policy as well?
So you're asking how to help other people sort of embrace this policy and connect differently?
Yes, ma'am, despite how I'm feeling about the policy myself.
That's tough. You know, I think again, having those moments where you can sort of buddy up and say, we're going to try this together for a few minutes. Let's put it down for whatever. Have like a cell-free zone. Where's that zone going to be for maybe you and your friends? And kind of mutually agree on that. Like, our cell-free zone maybe is going to be when we eat lunch, or maybe when we go to the library, and just kind of practice that and sit with each other and have some agreements over when those cell-free spaces might exist for you. And, you know, don't be afraid to acknowledge to each other that it's hard. I think part of it is just being able to be open about that and say, you know, I'm having a really difficult time with this. How about you? And the funny thing is, when we do that, that actually helps us connect, right? Because we're being kind of vulnerable in that moment with the other person, and they're going to do the same with us when we kind of do that. So I think using those moments as connection points can be really powerful too.
Yeah, so a lot of students have the mindset that this is my phone. Like, how are you going to tell me what to do with my property? What would you tell the students who have that mindset?
Well, I would tell them that it absolutely is their phone. You know, we are not trying, I don't think the intention is to separate folks from their phone. I think the intention is more to focus on what we're going to be gaining from maybe taking a pause. And, you know, there is a good amount of research coming out that does show us that our attention really does suffer when we have a phone, even when it's just in our presence. It doesn't necessarily have to be in our hands using it. Just having it next to us has the power to divert our attention. And we think we're multitasking, but really we're not. And so being able to say, maybe I am taking a pause from my phone, but what do I want to gain instead? A deeper learning, a deeper understanding, a better able to remember things and solve problems more independently. Think of how many times we pick up our phone to teach us how to solve a problem. Taking those opportunities to think through that. What are we going to gain? I would say, the intention is not to separate you, but maybe spin that focus to what are you going to gain instead.
And can I add something to that?
Mm-hmm.
We have laws in this country. You have a car, it's your car, but the law tells you where you can park your car, how fast you can drive your car, and basically what you can do with that car. Now, I'm not saying the cell phone policy is that restrictive as far as we're taking your phone away from you, but it is an opportunity for you to build relationship and to connect. And so Kelly has given you all of the psychological things that you need to do. I want to give you just a few practical things to do. It used to be that back in the days when I was a principal in a galaxy far, far away, I would actually see kids at tables talking to each other, talking about sports, talking about fashion, whatever was interesting to them. Kids would actually play games. So I had a group of students that had some chess boards that they would bring in, and they would have chess competitions. Others played other type of small games that they brought with them. I think we have to think outside of the box for opportunities that we now do on our phone. Because I like to play solitary on my phone. I have one of those little fidget rings that you give out, Kelly, that I'll put on that I just will play with. It just keeps my hands busy. And so I think it's going to require all of us to find different ways for us to stay engaged with each other without a phone in our hand.
Yes, so I wanted to ask you if you could give some maybe tips and tricks for the teachers to help them connect the students with the class. So because I know maybe for some students math might be too hard, or they just don't have that connection with that subject. So how can teachers get to connect the students with the class?
Well, when I was a teacher, I always started my school year off setting norms in the classroom. And students had a voice in that process. And so by doing that, I started building relationships with our students. And so I already heard somebody say, my favorite teacher. We always encourage our teachers to build relationships with our students. And then if students are struggling with a concept, there's multiple ways that we can help that student. One of the ways may be another student who has mastered that concept partners with that student and helps that student. Or the teacher may pull a small group of students together that are still struggling on that concept while other students are working independently. There's a ton of different strategies that I know your teachers already have in their back pocket, but when it comes to the free to focus policy, I would say engage students in the conversation around it and figure out what works best for your class. So I know there's one teacher's classroom I went into. She actually had the pockets up, and her students put their phones in the pocket. So the phone was there. This is before policy, because now the phone cannot be seen. It has to be away in your purse or your backpack. But talking to students and engaging students around the work.
Hi, so this is actually a little bit off topic, but I was wondering, what would you say, Dr. Moore, to students who are a little bit worried about necessarily their education being hindered? Because I know a little bit about, not a little bit, but I know that in the world that we are in now, technology and even things like AI are becoming the norms in the workforce and stuff that you're required to know to stay up to date and be a qualified candidate. So what would you say to students who are worried that they're going to be at a disadvantage compared to a student from North Carolina who doesn't have the same restrictions as they do?
What I would say to that student is, we know that you live in a digital age. And because you live in a digital age, we provide you with a Chromebook so that you can still be connected. And you can use that Chromebook for your lessons as well as for email. Do you have time outside of the school day to do other things that students would be doing on their phone? Yes, you do. I would also let you guys know that this is not just South Carolina. The former state that I came from, Florida, many districts have put in policies very similar to this to enhance the academic portion of the school day, so you'll be focused in your classroom, and also to help you build relationships with people and build that social, what did you call it, Tatiana? Those social relationships with each other. So I understand that students may feel like they're at a disadvantage because they can't use their phone, but basically your phone offers you the same computing power as your Chromebook does. So you're not losing any of those skill sets that you would need to be good digital citizens beyond high school.
I think that something a lot of students are concerned with is the usage of headphones. And I'm pretty sure I remember us talking about the policy and that being in the policy that you're not allowed to use those. And personally, I find myself being able at school, being able to focus a lot more with my headphones in and with just like calmer music playing than like the environment I'm around. And I've heard a lot of students have the same concerns that that's how they're able to focus and get their work done. So do you have any advice since we're not able to use them?
So you wouldn't be able to use headphones that are connected to Wi-Fi. So if it's the one that plugs into the computer and it just is there, you could use that. What I would say is that's a great topic to brainstorm with your teacher. So when I was a classroom teacher, I played music softly in the background, classical music, because research shows it stimulates the brain. I'm a science teacher by nature, and so kids would be first like, "What is that? What are you playing?" I'm like, "This is classical music. This is the best music there is." And after a while, my students developed a taste for it. They were like, "Could you put this one on? I really like this." And depending on what they were doing, I would change it up. So I might play Brahms' Lullaby, or I might play For Elise, or if I was really in a feisty mood, I'd play Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, which is around the Battle of Russia and Napoleon. There's opportunities out there. That may not be the music that resonates with you, but I would say that's a great strategy or conversation that go back to your teacher and talk about. Maybe it's some smooth jazz or some 80s or 70s music. Depends on what you like, and come to some type of consensus around that. Because I think it probably would help some other people. Here and then here.
All right. So back to like the lunch thing. I know we passed that like a while ago, but we're coming back to that now. So I have people who take their lunch time as a time to be by themselves, not social interacting, because they've been social the whole day, like they just want a break from them. How would you go about that if you can't
Well, go back to something Tatiana said. Go get a book, read a book, write, have a journal that you can capture your feelings in. Just figure out some ways in which you can be quiet that give you time and space to calm your mind. So with that, we're going to have to wrap up at this particular point in time. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you
for being here.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's my pleasure, and I think our students got a lot from you. Did you get a lot from Ms. Kelly Snipes, our lead psychologist for the district?
Well, thank y'all too. It was great to be here.
And thank you to our awesome students. I wish we could spend another hour having a conversation about this, because I love the brainstorming and the problem solving and your voice. I'll close with this. I know this is not easy for you. I truly understand what you are going through. We as adults deal with the same thing. I have 2 phones that I carry with me, my district phone, my personal phone. It's very difficult for me when I'm in a meeting and my district phone pings for me not to turn over that phone. The other thing is I wear an Apple Watch. right? I have an iPad, so I'm wired, and a laptop, and a desktop at work and at home. So I do understand the pressures that you're feeling and the anxiety that's coming along with this. But what I will say to you is, I know that you can do this. I can't tell you how long the proviso is going to last, but I will tell you this. Provisos tend to just stay attached and repeat year after year after year. And that's why your voice becomes so important. Because there may be ways for you to help shape that proviso to provide a little more flexibility in it. But if our legislators don't ever hear from you, they won't know that. So, my call to action to you is to use your voice. Use your voice to help your fellow students adjust to this policy. Use your voice to help your school, your teachers, your administrators to understand and recognize what you're going through. And then use your voice with our community, our legislators and the community members, as to how can we improve upon this. If it's going to stay in law, how do we improve it so it's beneficial and achieves the desired outcome? Okay? All right. Well, parents, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you found this podcast to be beneficial, because we need your help too, parents. I know we're coming into the holiday season. I know everybody wants that new iPhone 16 and the newest watch and the newest Beats. Parents, if you choose to make those decisions and reward your students with those opportunities to possess those items, I ask that you would encourage your students to leave the ones that are not necessary at home, and when they're in school, to follow the policy. Our goal is for students to be in the classroom and not out of the classroom, but we need your help with that. So thank you very much, parents, and let's always have a great day at Richland 2, where we are purpose-driven so that our students will be future ready.